a little bit about Carol Krimm and who you are.
Okay. I'm Carol Krimm, running for Board of Aldermen. I've lived in Frederick for almost 30 years. My husband and I have been married for about 37 years, and we raised our 2 children here in the city, and now we also have 2 grandchildren. I've been working for Delegate Claggett the last 7 years, and before that, I worked for Delegate Sue Hecht as her legislative staff. And during that period of time, I've learned a lot about local government, and I've learned a lot about constituent services and how you must return those phone calls and how you help people sort of get through the bureaucratic maze of government. And sometimes they reach a roadblock and they need to call their elected representative to help them get through that roadblock. And then after you do that and after they've solved the problem, they are very happy. And so there is a joy in public service. It's not always just the grind, getting up, going to work, and doing the same thing. Every day is different. Every constituent is very pleasant to work with, and I've really enjoyed my work.
Every phone call brings a new challenge.
It certainly does. And we also, of course, work on legislation for the county and the city. The county has their legislative package every year, and there are some issues that the city brings to Annapolis also.
Well, now, how much work would you have done with those, since usually that's the chair of the delegation that shepherds those through?
Well, whenever you do have legislation, all of the delegates would vote on it.
Correct.
So they would review the legislation. And I'm very much involved in doing analysis and research for legislation. For instance, we just got word that the city will have a few bills that they would like us to move forward. After it goes to MML, that's the Maryland Municipal League, the MML will have their legislative package. And the city then will have made some suggestions to that legislative package at MML. And one thing will be the tax equity program, the tax issue. Another one has to do with e-citation, which will perhaps keep more of our police out of the courtroom for length of time, because some of them, there's overtime issues and whatever for our police officers to have to go to. And
an e-citation would be what, just so the voters would understand what you're...
Well, I think, I haven't seen the legislation yet, but I think it would be more of an opt-in rather than a default to go to court automatically. You'd have to opt in to go to court, but I don't want to commit to that until I've actually read the legislation.
Okay. But what about tax equity? I know that's been a hot topic here in the city. Do you have any feel on that personally? How do you feel?
That's actually one of my core issues, is the tax equity.
Well, tell us about it.
Well, this started, I guess, last legislative session. 1 week before the end of session, before sine die, the county cut all of the municipalities' tax equity. That was like $7.4 million for the county. And whenever I saw that in the paper, and I immediately called Delegate Claggett and Delegate Hecht on the floor. That was, toward the end of session. And, Anita, towards the end, you're in session all day long.
Sitting on the floor all day.
Sitting on the floor all day. So they were both in the chamber, and I called them. They sit beside each other, and I said, the county has cut all of the tax equity for the municipalities. And that translated to Frederick City about $4.5 million. So we immediately put together some legislation. I called and had a bill drafted. And then Delegate Hecht, Delegate Claggett, myself called Commissioner Gray and explained to him the bill that we had put together that would have had the Board of County Commissioners reverse that decision, so to speak. They would have had to have given the municipalities their tax equity based on the previous year, plus an increase, like a 5% increase for the assessment increase. So Commissioner Gray was responsive, and the next day at their Board of County Commissioners meeting, because he was on the winning side of that vote to cut the tax equity, he was able to bring it back, and then they reversed that decision.
So he was on the prevailing side, because I know the Mayor Holtzinger was very concerned, as all the municipalities were, about being cut.
Absolutely, because it was a tough budget year for everybody.
Well, then, how we have talked about this before on Blaine Show. How do you hold the commissioners' feet to the fire and not let them cut things when the state, as you know, is being cut by the federal government, and then they have to go back in and also, just because of the economy, cut the state's budget when the revenue expectations don't meet?
Well, but tax equity, I feel, is a reimbursement.
Okay.
It should not even be part of their budget. That should come right off the top. And if we had a tax differential, which would be a lower tax rate for
is that
for
what
a city,
you prefer, a tax
I would prefer.
differential?
In fact, I testified for that at the county budget hearing this year. I testified for a tax differential, which would give us a lower tax rate. So that it would be in our pockets. It wouldn't even go to the county for them to rebate it to the city.
And thereby they wouldn't have the opportunity to touch the money and cut it or add to it. Of course, that wouldn't happen.
Exactly.
What are some of the other, and before we go on, I did want to say, with the four residents in the Western Environs had sent out a questionnaire, and you were one of the people who had responded, and we did want to thank you for taking the time to respond to that. But there was one of the things that you had talked about in that, and it was a Capital City Safe Streets program, I think, that you wanted to expand upon.
Yes. In some of our older neighborhoods, we have housing overcrowding issues. And I believe it's more than just an overcrowding issue. I believe there's other problems in those residences besides overcrowding. And when I went to a NAC 8 meeting in Hillcrest, they explained to me some of the problems they were having. And I remembered that the governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention had a program that they had started in Annapolis a year ago. It was called the Capital City Safe Streets Program. And what it did was bring under one umbrella many agencies and improve communication among juvenile services, parole and probation, state's attorney, sheriff's office, residents, mayor's office, just a number, U.S. Attorney's Office because of Project Exile. All these agencies came together and started communicating a little better.
Did they meet monthly or bi-monthly? Or
I think it was as the...
Were hotspots.
Hotspots. Right. And so, and we're going to learn more about the program. And that's what I was telling you when I came in, is that tomorrow I've been invited by the governor's office to come to a seminar on this Safe Streets program. And there is grant funding opportunity available. They're looking to replicate this program in 2 municipalities in the state. Chief Dine will be attending tomorrow also. So my hope is that he will see benefit in the program. We'll learn more about it. And if it can work here in Frederick, then, of course, we will pursue that grant funding.
Is the governor's office trying to fund one in Western Maryland and maybe on the lower shore, or is just anywhere statewide? It could be 2 in Western Maryland or 2 in the shore or anywhere. Right.
But Delegate Claggett now is the subcommittee chair of public safety on appropriations. So we're hoping that we certainly have some influence. And, of course, Delegate Hecht, she is also would advocate for this grant funding if Chief Dine feels that it's a program that would benefit us.
Is anybody else going to go with you and the chief? Or just he'll probably take Captain Grubb. When he came here, he bought Captain Grubb. Just kidding, Chief Dine. Just kidding. Because I said,
actually, it's not.
Did you bring him because you didn't know all the answers?
Actually, I'm not going with the chief. Okay. There is another officer going with the chief. It's not Captain Grubb, because I had emailed Captain Grubb today. It's not Captain Grubb, but I have to go do other things in Annapolis tomorrow. Okay, besides just do this. I have, how mail accumulates down there. And
you think mail accumulates? Oh, they bring it by the truckloads and you're supposed to go through it.
Yes.
Well, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and talk to Carol Krimm, who's a Democrat candidate for the alderman for the city of Frederick. This is Blaine Young's show.